Today it's time for a professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I've got for you is a Protoss versus Terran on Thunderbird LE. Spawning here in the southeast corner, playing with the blue Protoss probes. From South Korea, we have none other than Deer. His opponent in the opposite corner playing with the red Terran SCVs, likewise also from South Korea, we're looking inside of the main base of Gumiho. Now, as many of you probably know, Gumiho is one of my favorite StarCraft 2 players to watch, definitely my favorite Terran player. The thing is, he's not afraid to go for strange strategies that turn out to be the norm in a couple years. He's been playing Terran Mech for many years before it was cool, before everyone else was doing it, and he's always been playing strategies that are just a little bit different. Now, what I like about it is that he's still definitely considered to be one of the very best Terran players in the world. I think when it comes to best Terrans right now, in no particular order, it would probably be Maru, Innovation, TY, and Gumiho. And Gumiho is certainly amongst that group of players. He's been very strong lately, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring in this particular game. Deer, he ended up winning a GSL Code S back in 2013, whereas Gumiho won one in 2017 as well. Obviously, those are some of the most prestigious tournaments you can win in StarCraft 2. The majority of the tournament victories, though, of Deer were certainly a couple of years ago already. And while that certainly doesn't mean that he's going to be a weak player right now, he has been struggling a little bit more. But he's always been taking games off of top-level players, and he's actually had some pretty decent results as well. But none of those, like, insane results that he had a couple of years ago. Now, I actually saw a couple of people comment, like, hey, Lowko, what do you think is more prestigious, winning a BlizzCon or winning a GSL Code S? So I think there's one fundamental change, or one fundamental difference, rather, between these two events. So a GSL event takes place over the course of a couple of months. A BlizzCon and many of these other big events take place over the course of like a weekend or even like a day, right? What that means is that you oftentimes in a GSL Code S know who you're going to be facing off against a couple of weeks in advance. And because of that, you have a lot of time to prepare for the opponent. You have a lot of time to learn their strategies, to learn their tendencies, to watch their replays, to watch all of their VODs, and to figure out what your opponent might be playing, and then to come up with a strategy that is going to be calculated for that specific purpose, right? So obviously with a BlizzCon, you're going to face off against a lot of different opponents. You do have some time to prepare, but that preparation time is much smaller. I think in general, it is considered to be more prestigious actually to win a GSL Code S. It is just much harder to do, although if you were to ask any pro gamer, they would certainly choose to win a BlizzCon. Primarily also, I think the prize pool last year was like 270,000. I think that's one of the main reasons. But obviously, you also get called the world champion of StarCraft, which is always very nice. But I do think either way, it's very difficult to win, you know, either one of those tournaments, but especially a GSL Code S. Here's a fun bit of trivia. Both of them actually ended up winning their GSL event versus Sue in the grand finals. Sue very notorious for getting second place at events. Nice kill right there, actually, by the Reaper. But he's very notorious for getting second places at especially GSL Code S events. Although Sue actually ended up winning IEM Katowice about a month or two ago at this point. No, actually, it's probably been like 3 months. I'm not entirely sure, but he ended up winning that event, so much deserved victory right there by him. Alrighty, so let's see where this game is going to take us. So look, Gumiho likes tricking his opponent, right? So if you want to go for a quote-unquote standard Terran army in the Protoss versus Terran matchup, we will oftentimes see Terran players focusing on Marines and Siege Tanks, right? Marauders, Marines, Siege Tanks, Medevacs, that kind of army composition. Now, Gumiho is producing 2 Marines right here at once, but this doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be playing a biological-based army. This is one of those recent developments in this matchup as well. A lot of players are trying to trick their opponent to focus on one counter, and then to basically do a 1-2 punch and completely blindside their army. Obviously, I don't know if that's going to happen in this game, but definitely don't say that Gumiho is going to play bio here in this game just because you see a bunch of Marines coming up, okay? That's been a mistake I've made a dozen times myself on the ladder, but also while commentating games. Like, oh, he's making Marines, it's going to be bio. Nope, not necessarily. You might though, we'll see. All right, both players already going up towards that third base pretty quickly. I quite like that, actually. I mean, this map, it's one of the maps where you can quite safely take it. Basically, there's a ramp right here that leads towards the natural, but also towards the third. The thing is, there is a second attack path towards the third, but that one doesn't open up until these mineral patches are mined out. Now they have 5 minerals each, so it does mine out very quickly, but for now I think it's pretty safe. A couple of the Phoenixes trying to move forward. I thought maybe they wanted to go ahead and pick up a Cyclone. Cyclone's obviously very good in the early game defense, and while they're apparently going to get a Hellion for their troubles, that is by no means a big deal here for Gumiho. Gumiho is sending out a Liberator right here on the right-hand side of the map. Phoenix is once again trying to get in. There is indeed now also, where is it? The Engineering Bay coming up. Could be just for Planetary Fortress. Once again, dude, I want him to play Mech so bad this game. That would be awesome. I've seen him do it before, right? So basically, right now, I want him to play Mech. We'll talk about it more if he decides to add on extra factories. I think he might. Unless he starts up a +1 upgrade. He doesn't. Not yet, anyways. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I could look like a really smart commentator, or I could look like an absolute idiot. Anyways, the story that Gumiho is selling so far to his opponent is like, hey, I'm making engineering base, right? I've got myself a whole bunch of Marines. I'm gonna play Marines and siege tanks in the mid game, right? That's what he's selling so far. If you decide, dude, he's starting up additional factories. That is awesome. So everything right now that Deer sees points towards the fact that this is gonna be a Marine-based mid game. Oh my god. Deer starts up the robotics bay. That's gonna be either for disruptors, but more likely Colossi. Colossi are absolutely awful against Terran Mech. So he's... Dude, yeah, that is so clever, right? So the whole story here that Gumiho is selling is like, hey, I'm gonna play Marines, right? I made like a dozen Marines. Who plays Marines and then goes Mech? Well, the Marines are here for early game defense. They'll help out a little bit later into this game as well. But there's no stim pack, no combat shield, and none of that. Banshee moved across the map, trying to get a couple of kills as well. Hyperflight Rotors is even coming up, so Gumiho is going to continue building up that hit squad. Colossus is coming up, and I don't think you want to go for a Colossus right now if you're Deer. Tricky, tricky, tricky one. Now, Deer, though, does continuously expand, so that is certainly something very, very critical. Going up to watch the 4th Nexus already. I like that a lot. He's like, you know what? I'm assuming you're playing Bio, and that's cool and all, but I know I'm not going to be able to break your 3rd base position. I mean, good luck trying to push up towards a bunch of siege tanks, but also a high ground. I mean, we've all seen Star Wars, right? The high ground is certainly superior. But yeah, you're not going to be able to break that very easily. So if you know your opponent is going to be playing greedy, just try and play even more greedy. Works like a charm. Couple of adepts. Got a couple of SCVs for their troubles. But all in all, you know, considering this has been going on for 8 minutes, we haven't seen anything too terrifying just yet. See the extended thermal lens right there for Deer. Scanner right there in the main base confirms it as well. I think that Gumiho probably has a cheeky little smile on his face. I like this a lot though. Stargate coming up as well as a fleet beacon. I actually thought that this would all be additional gateways, but no, it's a Stargate and a fleet beacon. That does obviously give Deer the option to go to watch carriers, but more important, Tempest. If you don't have any Tempest, sometimes this game will become a little bit tricky. Especially when you're fighting a maxed out Terran Mech army. So the thing is, back in the day, Terran Mech kind of sucked against Protoss because you couldn't create that Death Ball army. Nowadays, because of the changes that they've made to basically all Terran Mech units, but for example, a Cyclone, and then more notably, for example, like the Battle Cruiser, and then the amount of damage that Thors and whatnot deal now as well, and with the ranged buff and all that, right? Because of all of those minor changes, it is possible to create a Death Ball in the Terran versus Protoss matchup that is based around mechanical units. Alright, I think that Deer probably knows something. He hasn't seen that much. He's making Tempest right now. Maybe he's just doing that by default. He hasn't seen, like, additional factories coming up. He might still assume that this is a bio-based army, though. Like, this is what he scouts, right? Doesn't this look like bio? I mean, I guess he's seen a lot of additional Hellions as well, so... yeah, that's a pretty clear indication. Anyways. Gumiho finally goes for the 4th command center, too. But this certainly is gonna be a push that is meant to deal a bunch of damage. If he doesn't, I mean, Deer is mining 81 workers, going up towards the 5th base. He is happily macroing up here. A couple of force fields delaying that push here from the Terran player as well. And Deer is just simply producing a lot more stuff. He needs to get as many Tempests out as possible. Tempests are one of the units that can easily pick all of these Terran units up from a distance. Keep in mind, there's really not that much air, or anti-air rather, from Gumiho. You might want to start switching into more Cyclones. I do agree with that. You might even want to start up some Vikings, maybe go for some Thors, but at least focus on some units. Because the more Tempests are going to be out, the harder this army will be to deal with. And even though Dare was kind of blindsided there earlier, he's got 3 Colossi, but he stopped them right there, right? He didn't continue producing anymore after that. Did the Prism, by the way, get picked off? I think it did. Yeah, it did. So Thors are coming out, we see a lot of Hellions coming out, and we also now see that upgrade here. Mech Field Accelerator that will help out with the lock-on ability of those Cyclones. Quite a lot of Cyclones here in the mix. And there we go, though. I love that, right? So keeping that Oracle alive, super important. It did a little bit of harassment earlier, it got him a little bit of scouting information, but right now it's providing vision, revelation on all of those siege tanks, and that is all that these Tempests really need. Now, Thors recently got a bit of an upgrade. They now have 11 ranged. 2 air. I think that was primarily done to address the Terran versus Zerg matchup. Because they right now outrange Brute Lords by 1, which is quite important. But it certainly also helps out in this kind of scenario, right? You can pick up those Tempests much easier. Cyclones, though, so much damage, right? Look at that. Really nicely done. Alright. So let's see where's this game gonna go. One Stasis Ward here on the right-hand side. Couple of Hellions trying their very best to get some damage in. Thing is, even if Deer ends up losing a bunch of probes, that's totally cool. He doesn't care. He could just remake those. He's mining so much. I think that Deer, even though I thought he was being blindsided pretty hard here, I think he's actually reading the situation wonderfully right now. He knows that Terran Mech is one of those unit compositions that doesn't move out until it's close to maxing. Right? He might even wait until +2/+2 upgrades are done for all of those mechanical units. And if that's the case, you can obviously expand wherever. I kind of would like him to even see, I kind of would like him to take this base. The rich Vespian geysers are super helpful. You get yourself so much more damage done. I think in the end, though, having an army based around Tempests, Archon, Immortal, Zealot, that kind of unit composition is really good. I don't think you want to have too much caught up right here in Stalkers and Colossi. They just don't really cut it here in the late game. So even a second Cybercore is coming up right now, which is really, really important. Zealots trading against a couple of those Hellions as well. Second Cybercore, by the way, is obviously for the air weapon upgrades. Super useful. Even a Dark Shrine. So basically, he's just getting everything he can right now. And look at the gas count. Deer is happily macroing up. Protoss in the late game usually is limited by gas. And, you know, the more he has of that, the easier this is going to become. Another downside of Terran Mech is that usually it will move towards the center of the map, the more that the Terran bases grow. So if you know that that is the case, right? Oftentimes a big warp in inside of the main base, since the Terran army is so slow, can be an absolute disaster. Here we go, once again, that Oracle, right? With Revelation, it's gonna provide the vision that these Tempests use. They can shoot further away than they can see to get a lot of work in. Cyclones moved across the map, not really getting that much value here. But right now, though, yeah, there's a lot of Thors available, right? These Thors are gonna be a big deal. Stalkers blink forward. Managed to get a couple of kills right there on the Vikings. Very nice. But the Thors are here, as they always like to say. And they're going to be very, very good, especially with their high impact mode. Going to be able to smash those units out of the sky with relative ease. Another one of those War Prisms was produced. Hanging out in the northern section of the map. Once again, though, a couple of Zealots get warped in right here from a Prism on the left. So essentially, Deer is just trying to soft contain his opponent. I like it, right? He's like, you know what? You can play Terran Mech. That's cool. You can even have 4 bases, that's cool, but I'm not gonna give you any more than that. I will just harass you all over the place, and at some point, you're either gonna have to push across, I'll try and stop that, or you're gonna have to try and make another expansion. Until that point, I will be outmining you, and if that's the case, I'm gonna just simply get a lot more stuff. The only thing is that I feel like Terran is strongest when they are maxed out with an army like this. Oh my god, so much damage being done, by the way. These Stalkers, they are not messing around either. Big Stalker warping, that's when you know you've got a lot of money if you're Protoss, right? Usually Zealot warpings are pretty manageable, but that is a lot of SCVs. At the same time, we saw a bit of a push right here at the front. Once again, the Thors tried to get into position, but I like this a lot. How did I not catch this until right now? Couple of battle cruisers are being produced. The Yamato Cannon upgrade also coming up inside of that fusion core. Obviously, Yamato Cannon is phenomenal. Yamato Cannon can be used right here to pick up all of these super high-value Protoss targets. And ever since these battle cruisers can now move and shoot at the same time, they've actually become very formidable. Especially when it comes to dealing with ground units. Alright. At some point, these armies are gonna have to clash, right? Unless Gumiho decides to just try and go for a big counterattack, as soon as Protoss, or as soon as Terran, you know, moves across the map. I don't really see that happening, though. Carriers even coming up right now. Battlecruisers versus carriers. That's not something I've seen very much. Once again, though, as soon as that Terran army moves even an inch, right? We see the Prism moving in. Like, yeah, the Prism dies every time as well. But now there's a couple of Dark Templar in the mix. A couple of Zealots in the mix. They pick up a couple SCVs, and they slow down the Terran economy. Battlecruiser actually taking a lot of damage. Ooh, that hurts quite a bit, right? It's not really what you want. They do decide to zap away. A lot of the Terran army, though, currently unsieged. But as soon as the siege tanks do siege up, we see the Protoss army retreating as well. But this is so much damage. It's really the Prism, guys, that is keeping Gumiho on his toes here. He hasn't been allowed to grab a 5th base because of that. Now, he is producing 3 battlecruisers at once. He is producing his maxed out army. 44 workers only here for Gumiho. So what you're seeing right here is what you're gonna get, right? This is a maxed out Terran army, or close to it anyways. And they are gonna be phenomenal when it comes to fighting this Protoss force. But he's only got really 1 shot. He's not going to be able to reproduce the army that Deer, for example, can. Big amount of Zealot, and as well as a couple of Dark Templar move towards the base over here. I like that so much. Battlecruisers, though, are available. We see the SCVs trying to repair here in time as well, but the majority of that Terran army is moving across, and it looks like the planetary... Oh, no, it will fall. Dark Templar always more damage than you anticipate. Deer just absolutely plummeted in supply. Gumiho moving forward. Keep in mind, though, he barely has any mining. So this army, once again, is what he's got. Carriers coming out. We see a lot of Archons even being produced. A couple of Immortals right now in the mix as well. They are very, very strong. Thors in this mode, not very good when it comes to dealing with little interceptors. Look at the amount of units that are joining this fight as well. So many of those battlecruisers in the air as well. Stalkers still being warped in. Archons are being picked off, and Gumiho seems to be getting the favorable trade here. A lot of Protoss units, though, do reinforce this army as well. Zealots now even charging forward right there at all of those Thors. Battlecruisers are starting to get picked off as well, but this Terran army, man, it's marching forward. It's not slowing down, is it? Still, this is an all-in, right? For all intents and purposes, this is an all-in. Gumiho, yeah, does have a little bit of mining. Apparently, what is that? Did that burn down? I guess it did. Anyways, there's really not a lot of additional mining here anymore for Gumiho. He has not retaken his 4th base. He's not going for a 4th either. Continuously, we see Protoss units going for the counterattack, which is nice and all, but Deer needs to be cautious. If he cannot stop this Protoss army, or this Terran army rather, he's going to be in a world of hurt. Keep in mind, though, there's still another base right here to the left. Gumiho does not even try and go after that one. A lot of Storms available here as well. Archons in the air, but once again, Yamato cannons being utilized this time around on all of those carriers. Very high-value targets. At the same time, though, the Protoss player is absolutely smashing all of those reinforcements that Gumiho is squeezing out. And I think that this army is not going to see any additional units added to it. If Deer can buy enough time to stay alive here and get enough reinforcements to stop this army, he's gonna be okay. I don't know if you want to move forward just yet, though. If you can wait 1 more warp-in round, I think he might be in a better spot. Maybe set it up, like, as a bit of a flank. That would be super helpful. Gumiho right now target firing down the pylons. I love that. That's gonna slow down the amount of reinforcements that Deer can make. A lot of SCVs are being picked off here. A lot of probes are being killed as well, but here we go. Apparently, the Protoss army has had enough. He's storming as much as he possibly can. Still, though, the Thors do manage to get a whole bunch of damage in. Battlecruisers are running low on hit points. They're now being forced to go back home instead. I don't know if that was actually that good of an idea, though, right? These Stalkers are going to have an easy time picking up those wounded Battlecruisers. They are maxed in upgrades. 43 SCVs full. But the Thor still stand, and one siege tank is also still trying its best. Dude, does he have an orbital? Okay, he does have an orbital. I was gonna say, Dark Templar, very, very valuable here. Dude, he does have still a couple scans available, but the Stalkers are actually picking up the orbital commands. If that's the case, technically speaking, 1 Dark Templar can win the game. Once again, a big Stalker warp in here. I think actually forcing scans out is a great idea, yeah. Oh, man. Even though I felt like Gumiho was going for the death push there, just the simple fact that Deer went for the continuous counterattacks prevented a lot of additional bases and then picked off all of those orbital commands meant that Gumiho realized I'm not going to be able to stop all of those Dark Templar from ravaging my army. He knew that there was still a base on the left as well that was fully mined out. And if there's one thing that's true about Terran Mech is, yes, it's really powerful, but it's also extremely slow. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again in the next one.